We also found out that men and women are differentially adapted to their diet. So living in the same environment, with access to the same resources, men and women are differentially adapted to food composition. This was a profound break with traditional thinking on nutrition and reproduction.
Hi everybody, Samad here, and today I want to talk about why the carnivore diet, or the ketogenic diet for that matter even, can be so dangerous for women. Now I understand that this has proven to be very therapeutic for many women, but there are also very many women who end up with thyroid issues, infertility, the loss of their menstruation, hair loss, insomnia, and so on. And you can find these women all over YouTube and on Reddit. And I'd like to provide some insight on why this happens, why it's so detrimental for many women. So first off, most people find relief on this way of eating because they have endured a lifetime of consuming a low-fat diet, high-grain diet that's sprayed with glyphosate, and this depopulates the gut microbiome. In addition to that, we have been, as an industrial race, administered antibiotics since childhood as if it were candy. And the two of these, the glyphosate on the food, which is a very toxic chemical, and the antibiotics depopulate the gut microbiome. And so most people cannot tolerate any form of fiber or plant food because plant foods rely on bacterial fermentation in order to digest. But if the bacterial colonies are not there, you can't digest the plant matter. So going on a no fiber diet proves some temporary relief, of course. But again, the long-term consequences, many women suffer from this. Why? Let's get into this. If we go into history, we find different cultures and different peoples emerging in different places at different times who are totally unrelated, who instead of worshiping God or the universe through the masculine lens, they worship it through a feminine lens. It's just the orientation of the culture. They worship a goddess figure. And almost always, they represent this goddess figure through small clay figurines or statues even. And usually this figurine of the goddess, or the fertility goddess, is a strong, robust woman with strong curvature and hips. And this is important because our ancestry, who were far more in tune with their instinct in the natural world, understood well what contributed to the health and fertility of a woman. And it was namely robustness and curvature, not skinniness and thinness. And in order to create that kind of fertility in a woman, she needs a plethora of nutrition from the natural world. She needs healthy carbohydrates and healthy fats. If you remove any macronutrient, whether it be carbs or fat or protein, she starts to dwindle. You see this with vegans, the extreme vegans, and you see this with the extreme carnivores. The carnivores remove the carbohydrates, the vegans remove the animal fat. And the women become very thin and very often lose their menstruation, they get thyroid issues, and they get hair loss problems. In order to build a robust woman, you have to give her everything. You have to feed her everything in the highest quality manner. She has to have the best fats and the best carbs and the best proteins. And the women need more carbohydrates. They need to put on more fat because their organism is specifically designed by nature to house embryos and develop a child. You know, it's specifically designed for gestation, whereas the man is not. The man can go into ketosis far more often and be lean. With that being said, I want to show you guys a snippet of a TED Talks. It is by a cultural anthropologist who stayed with the Hadza tribe in Tanzania. The Hadza are one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer tribes in the world. They're very ancient people. And she studied the relationship between diet and nutrition, or this relationship between nutrition and gender amongst these people. And she found that the women have a far more significantly different diet than the men do. The women actually have a diet which consists of a lot more carbohydrates. And later in her research, she found that they even have a gut microbiome, which was far different than the men's microbiome. They had a microbiome which had bacteria specifically designed for digesting fibers and starches. Take a look.
I'm an anthropologist, which means that, put quite simply, I study people. I study human beings all around the world, past and present. And I'm a behavioral ecologist, which means that I'm particularly interested in looking at the ways in which human behaviors evolved in response to ecological pressures. So this means that my work crosses many different disciplines: anatomy, biology, medicine, nutrition, neurology, even microbiology. What I do focuses on the intersection between diet, reproduction, and behavior in the context of human evolution. And my work revolves around the ways in which human mothers are unique. So this took me to the shores of Lake Eyasi in northern Tanzania, East Africa, where I met and began working with a group of foragers, or hunter-gatherers, called the Hadza. The Hadza are unique, not because they're a Stone Age population. They're just as modern and contemporary as you and me, but because they live a life in the absence of agriculture and in the absence of permanent dwellings, which is much like the lives that our ancestors lived over 95% of human evolutionary history. So this made them an important place to start asking these questions about how reproduction and diet can influence social behavior and childbearing. Makes sense. We also found out that men and women are differentially adapted to their diet. So living in the same environment, with access to the same resources, men and women are differentially adapted to food composition. This was a profound break with traditional thinking on nutrition and reproduction. We've often thought that women in small-scale foraging societies like the Hadza were targeting low-quality plant foods. Okay? Turns out that Hadza women contain bacteria in their guts that allows them to more efficiently digest the fibrous foods that they're consuming. So it turns out diet does tell us something relevant about reproduction. And what I found during this time, after working with the Hadza, is that they have an incredibly well-balanced diet. Like all other subtropical foraging populations, the Hadza eat a really well-balanced seasonal diet that contains all sorts of fruits, nuts, seeds, legumes, tubers, meat, and honey. And I also found out that there are incredible sex differences in diet composition. So men and women target different foods. So while Hadza men focus on meat and honey, and children focus on anything they can reliably collect, from berries to fruits to tubers to small game animals, women target plant foods. Women forage in groups, and they tend to focus on underground storage organs, tubers, which act as food and water reserves for the plant, and they can be sometimes buried 2 to 3 feet underground. They're a staple of the Hadza diet. They're available year-round. When they're not available, women focus on other foods. They focus a lot on fruits and berry species, many different types. So now that I'd figured out what basic diet composition was, right, what the Hadza were eating and how this mapped onto foraging behavior, I could start asking some more complicated questions. I was very lucky to be part of an international team that looked at the Hadza gut microbiome. And we were really interested in looking at the bacterial species that live inside the Hadza gut for a few reasons. Not only because this would reveal a lot about how these bacterial species are fellow travelers in human evolution, but it would also tell us something about diet composition and potentially also about reproduction. And our results were striking. What we found is that the Hadza gut microbe ecosystem is far more diverse than Western populations. So populations like us in the US living in a post-industrialized Western context. They not only had more species of bacteria, but they had different types of bacteria. So it turns out that the Hadza gut microbiome is adapted for broad-spectrum carbohydrate metabolism, which makes sense given all the complex polysaccharides that are in their diet, right? So this kind of made sense.
So is the carnivore diet the holy grail? No, it's not. Can it be therapeutic for a time? Yes, of course it can be, but it is not the end all. In order for us to achieve a level of health that is sustainable for everyone, what we need to do is stop thinking about diet and nutrition and start focusing more so on the source of our food and the way how our food is produced. There needs to be a revamping of the entire food production system, because in its modern form, for the most part, it's producing poisonous food which offers little to no nutritional value. I hope you all enjoyed this video. My name is Vera Samad. I have a book written specifically on this subject on how to properly nourish and fortify a woman. It's called Nutritional Fortification and Physical Development. And actually it's about nourishing and developing both women and men. It's the opposite of a weight loss diet, and it's about how to build and develop bodies in the most harmonious manner possible. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for future videos. Purchasing any of my published works on Amazon's helps me a lot. It affords me the time and resources to be able to make more content like this. Thank you all again, and have a wonderful day.